The mysterious case of people killing aliens. There have long been those cases skirting about on the periphery of UFOs or aliens attacking people, and indeed, this feeds into a long-held view fostered by science fiction stories that extraterrestrial intelligence just might be inept and out to invade us. Indeed, many alien abduction cases often feature terrifying elements that make them ideally at home in a horror story and do not paint these entities as particularly friendly. But have you ever wondered if there were some people who turned the tide, and if there are instances when we win and get the upper hand? As a matter of fact, there are such cases, and here we will look at a selection in which people have managed to allegedly fight against and kill alien beings. We start here with a bizarre case from the spring of 1940, when a young boy named Robert Hall was playing with his friends in a maze of red brick Tyneside terraces along Saltwell Road in Gateshead, England. At some point, they decided to head home, and as they walked, Robert would claim that they had been confronted with a big egg-shaped thing surrounded by bright light. As the frightened boys tried to figure out what was going on, they saw some bizarre entities with very different appearances. Robert would claim that 3 of them looked like men but were only 2 to 4 feet in height, while one looked like Bigfoot, and another had long flowing hair and a coat that partially covered a skeletal body and bat wings. Some of the boys ran off screaming, but Robert says he was so astonished that he stayed put, and that was when one of the creatures approached him and asked him in perfect English if they could examine him. He would describe what happened next. "I told them it was 1940 and we were at war with Germany. They extracted the blood from the back of my neck and applied jelly. I kept my eyes shut. I was terrified and trembling. After 20 terrifying minutes, I was allowed to go. I was up that street like a shot. My parents thought I was kidding, and so did the soldiers." Robert would claim that the following day some strange men in black suits had approached him and told him to speak to no one of what he had experienced, and a few days after this he said that one of the aliens, this one looking like a typical gray alien with a thin frame, a large head, and oversized black eyes, tried to kidnap him right on the street in broad daylight. This would apparently not end well for the alien, as Robert's uncle saw the altercation and ran to the rescue, and he would say of it, "He had big eyes and a large head. He was on me in a couple of seconds. I fell over the curb and bashed my toe. My Uncle Ernie saw what was happening and bashed its head in with a coal shovel." This apparently killed the creature, after which the uncle put the alien's dead body into a coal sack and notified authorities. He would further claim that the army was called in and the body taken to a church before being whisked away by the military. Robert would also say that he developed strange, small triangular marks on his left cheek, which remained there until he was about 12 or 13, before disappearing without a trace. Robert Hall would keep the whole bizarre tale to himself for years before coming forward with it, upon which his case would become popular with ufologists and he would begin appearing on the alien abductee circuit, giving lectures, and even appearing in a documentary on the odd events. The case is intriguing because it predates most accounts of alien bodies being taken away by the military, which UFO researcher Richard Hall has explained. It is a fascinating story, and it is a very early case in terms of modern-day gray alien abductions. Other abduction cases were reported in Brazil in 1957 and in the US in 1961, increasing throughout the 60s and 70s. There is a case of a recovered UFO in Missouri where small alien creatures were allegedly recovered, and, obviously, we have Roswell from 1947. But this predates all of that, which makes it a very interesting case. Interestingly, Robert says the creatures had a short, white handheld device that could subdue or immobilize somebody, and there are triangular marks that were left on his face. These are all things that we find in abductee cases again and again. Robert's description of the creatures, the small stature, the gray skin, the large eyes, the craft itself, the elliptical shape, and the metallic surface with the bright light, are common features of alien abduction stories. There's also the fact that they tried to interfere with Robert's neck. I don't believe that they took blood, as Robert claims. They were possibly trying to put something in. Another interesting case of people allegedly killing aliens supposedly occurred in 1978 at Fort Dix, New Jersey, in the United States. According to retired Air Force Major George Filer III, a decorated former intelligence officer for the 21st Air Force, Military Airlift Command at the adjacent McGuire Air Force Base, on the morning of January 18 of that year, he arrived at the base for an intelligence briefing for his superior officers and immediately noticed that the whole area was locked down in a high-security alert state. When he spoke to the superior officer there, things would get very strange indeed, of which he says, "The senior master sergeant runs everything, from who sweeps the floors to organizing the staff schedules and making sure phones and faxes are up and running." He was agitated, his face was pale, and his eyes were wide open. Then he said the strangest thing: "An alien has been shot at Fort Dix, and they found it on the end of our McGuire AFB runway." I replied, "Was it an alien from another country?" "No, it was from outer space, a space alien," the sergeant explained. "There are UFOs buzzing around the pattern like mad." Filer claims that UFOs had been apparently buzzing the base for several days and that, in the early hours of the morning, a military policeman had gone off in pursuit of a strange, low-flying aircraft of some sort, described as being oval-shaped and emanating a blue-green glow. This strange craft had then swooped down to hover directly over his vehicle, and at that instant, a 4-foot-tall gray and brown creature with a large head, long arms, and a thin body had emerged from the darkness to amble into the headlight beams. The panicked MP had then drawn his firearm and ordered it to stop, and when it ignored this order, the man fired upon it 5 times and killed it. The creature's body, which was described as giving off a foul-smelling, ammonia-like stench, was then supposedly whisked away by a cleanup crew from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, which also serves as the headquarters of the National Air and Space Intelligence Center, and has not been seen since. Filer, who did not see the alien body personally, insists that he knows for a fact that the story is true and has written of it in his book Strange Craft, the true story of an Air Force intelligence officer's life with UFOs. Was there anything to this or not? In another weird incident, one day in 1996, Dr. Jonathan Reed claims that his dog went missing after wandering off, after which he went out into the woods near his home to see if he could find it. As he walked, he allegedly saw a floating UFO in the shape of a spike, and when he eventually did find the dog, it was allegedly being attacked by a vibrating part reptilian, part gray alien. This bizarre entity then grabbed the dog's jaws and snapped them apart, and the animal then disintegrated into white ash. Reed then purportedly attacked the creature with a thick tree branch, bashing its brains in and killing it. He would supposedly then take a video of both the dead alien and its spacecraft before hauling the body home and attempting to dissect it, but its black, spandex-like outfit automatically sewed itself up every time it was cut. He then stuffed the corpse into a freezer, but it disappeared the next day for reasons unknown. Ever since then, Reed has claimed that he has been followed around by mysterious agents, and one poster and researcher by the name of Tommy Grand has spoken of his ordeal on Google Groups. Reed has been on the run ever since. Wiping his eye, he admitted that he's been beaten up by agents 3 times, and 2 of his close friends have been killed. He goes as far as saying his life has been ruined and that he has lost nearly all of the things he enjoyed before his encounters, such as a steady job, home, and girlfriend. Recently, he was shot in the shoulder after trying to wrest a gun from a stranger who approached him in a parking lot. The controversial contactee recently co-authored a book called The Link, which contends that mysterious agents are chasing Reed for a technology that the alien wore on his wrist. Something like a transmitter-receiver, this hieroglyphic link bracelet turned from silver to black when Reed clasped it on the alien's arm. It is believed that the wristband served as a tracking device that maintained a connection with the alien's 9-foot-long, granite-like craft. Reed has appeared many times at lectures and on radio programs such as Coast to Coast AM, where he has continued to insist that it is all completely true, but others are not so sure. Skeptics have maintained that the video is a hoax, and the case was even featured in a 2010 episode of the show Fact or Fake, Paranormal Files, where it was deemed to be a likely hoax, citing that the footage was easily replicated and Reed's voice showed signs of deception when subjected to a voice stress analysis. While this does not necessarily prove it was all a sham, it has dented the credibility of Reed, although he still has a large number of believers. Even more recent and perhaps most bizarre of all is the time a guy killed an alien with a damn samurai sword. In 2009, John Edmonds and his wife moved into a spacious, 3,436 square foot ranch-style house on a 10-acre property called the Stardust Ranch in Rainbow Valley, Arizona, located on the extreme west edge of metropolitan Phoenix. It was a luxurious dream home, with 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a swimming pool, a gated entry, and plenty of space for their horse rescue operation, but almost immediately upon moving in, they began experiencing a plethora of strange phenomena and high levels of strangeness. It started with strange lights in the sky, unidentified noises out in the desert night, some unseen trespassers sneaking around on the property, and rather strangely, the previous owner's furniture was found one day bobbing around in the swimming pool for no apparent reason. They then began catching fleeting glimpses of small, large-headed entities with oversized black eyes lurking about in the shadows of the property, and after this, the mutilations would begin. Edmonds claims that he found several horses from their rescue operation dead and with organs missing, in a fashion typical of UFO cattle mutilations. He also says that some of his dogs were ruthlessly slain in the same way. It would only graduate to the increasing intensity from there. Before long, he claims, they were under siege by mysterious alien entities that would prowl about his property at night to peek into windows and actually come to him and his wife in the night to assault and perform medical experiments on them, leaving behind needle-like holes in their skin, bruises, and causing them to come down with mysterious illnesses. These creatures were described as being basically gray aliens, the classic description of large bald heads holding those almond-shaped eyes and with skinny frames, and he says they relentlessly prowled about his remote property. Edmonds believes they are interdimensional in nature and said of these strange entities on Coast to Coast AM. I have heard and seen critters moving around in our enclosed sunroom. The west wall contains 4 large windows. The speed generated by their movements all at once made the glass in the double-pane windows actually buzz and misalign in the frames to the point where the windows are now very difficult to close and lock properly without using a screwdriver to realign them in the frame first. I believe the high-frequency buzz is a side effect of their partial in-phase or out-of-phase interdimensional travel. In a safe situation, critters transcend cleanly from one dimension to another. In what they perceive as risky circumstances, they only physically materialize to the point of just crossing the physical threshold. The buzzing occurs at a quantum level as they are partially in both dimensions at the same time. If they are suddenly startled, they pull back out of phase into their regular dimension. If they feel safe, then they come completely into this dimension, and the buzzing stops. This is the perfect opportunity to physically grab one and then hold on as hard as possible because they will try to bug out again immediately. Edmonds says it got even scarier when these purported aliens began assaulting and trying to abduct his wife, saying, "They actually levitated my wife out of the bed in the master chamber and carried her into the parking lot and tried to draw her up into the craft." She would often show bruises and scratches from these encounters. This was apparently the last straw for Edmonds, and he began fighting back against these otherworldly intruders with a samurai sword he kept hanging above the fireplace. Yes, you read that right, he fought them with a katana. He would say of his first battle with one of these creatures, "I was killed in self-defense after numerous home invasions by similar creatures over a long period of time. The assaults by these creatures were responded to with the most violent behavior I could muster because of the weekly and sometimes daily confrontations during which our home, ranch, horses, and dogs were killed. Pierced by the sword with 6 inches of cold steel perforating the body cavity and seemingly lifeless, the gray alien still managed to disappear before I could withdraw the weapon and chop off the head. My intention in removing the head was to see if this would prevent it from disappearing. It is my hypothesis that the head controls the ability to control the dimensional transference between one place and another. I had hoped to interrupt the process by diminishing the body's integrity. I wiped up the Gray's blood, fluid, and tissue, which I nearly split in half with an exceptionally sharpened samurai sword. He would then collect tissue and blood samples and purportedly send them to a researcher called W.C. Levengood for analysis, who would allegedly inform him that they were most certainly not only not human but unlike anything seen before, even going so far as to say they were the smoking gun for the existence of aliens. Unfortunately for any of us waiting for concrete answers, this Levengood apparently just sort of disappeared and took the samples with him. Convenient. That, plus the fact that the alien managed to vanish after being damn near cut in half by a sword, leaves us with no physical evidence outside of photographs and the samples that Edmonds insists totally, for real, exist, and this ends up just another wild report with no corroboration. Indeed, he claims that they would always evaporate after death. Unsurprisingly, his tales remain unproven, and we are left to wonder just how much of this completely absurd report is true. It is certainly novel, though, attacking an alien entity with a samurai sword, and whether his insane story is true or not, he deserves points for creativity at the very least. Nevertheless, Edmonds would later claim on a 2016 episode of the hit TV show Ghost Adventures that he had eventually slain over a dozen of the malicious entities during his time at the ranch in a similar fashion, always with a sword despite his arsenal of handguns, shotguns, and even an AK-47 assault rifle at his disposal, and to the point that he had gotten quite good at it. On occasion, he says he also incurred wounds from these fights, which he would post pictures of to social media, and he also was allegedly frequently visited by the mysterious men in black. By now, the story was picking up widespread media attention, but considering how remote the property is and the fact that there was never any photographic or physical evidence offered up, people began having doubts as to their mental stability of Edmonds. Podcasters Brian Frange and Phoebe Tyers would bring up on their show Unbelievable Podcast that it was possible that, considering Joyce Edmonds' claims of alien sexual assault and physical injuries incurred by them, perhaps her husband was to blame and was making up or hallucinating this alien stuff as a cover. Frange would say, "Is John Edmonds abusing his wife in her sleep and then blaming it on the aliens? I'm not saying he's a sociopath, but he does display traits that could be classified as sociopathic. It might not even be that he just cooked up a story about aliens in order to cover up the fact that he's beating his wife. There's a distinct possibility that he honestly believes aliens are abducting his wife and causing the bruises because subconsciously he needs to create a defense mechanism to allow him to view himself as a good person. I don't necessarily think John Edmonds is lying. I believe he is telling the truth as he believes it to be. But the real truth might be something else." Edmonds has completely denied these claims and stuck by his story, and in the meantime, he says that he has had enough of the ranch and its strangeness, putting it up for sale for an initial $1.7 million. However, considering the attention drawn to the ranch by the media and its appearance on Ghost Adventures, the price quickly skyrocketed to an eye-watering $5 million based on its bonkers otherworldly reputation alone. The listing agent, Kimberly Garrow with West USA Realty, has expressed interest in the place. There are thousands of people, both nationally and internationally, who follow the owner online and have strong beliefs about aliens and the paranormal. Reaching these people online to generate buzz about the property has been my #1 marketing strategy. This isn't the type of property that you can just place in the MLS and wait for a buyer to come along. Some are very intrigued and have no issues with the history of the property, while others are absolutely scared to death about what may or may not happen to them if they should buy it. We've already got 3 interested parties, and the thing at least 2 out of the 3 of them have in common is that they're all true believers in UFOs and aliens. One potential buyer up in Iowa even told me she also had a personal experience with aliens and knows this kind of thing to be true. So those seem to be the types of people who are drawn to the property. Obviously, It is going to take a unique person who has a true curiosity for and interest in the property's history. I have no doubt that there is a buyer out there for this special place. Edmonds would maintain his story, insisting that it was all true, and it had raised quite a few eyebrows. Just what is going on here? What are we to make of such off-the-wall claims? It certainly seems to be all the ravings of a delusional mind, but there have been other places that have been claimed to have such weirdness orbiting them as well, such as the infamous Skinwalker Ranch. It is hard to know what to make of such bizarre claims, and we are left to sort of file them away into the unknown, forced to merely speculate. Was this the result of psychoses, hallucinations, unexplained phenomena, or all of the above? Whatever one may think, killing aliens with a katana is still pretty rad, real or not. Is there anything to this or any of the other cases we have looked at here? Are there really people who have managed to kill these creatures, and if so, why is there no evidence? They are all damn strange cases, no matter what one may think, and show that despite an alien's advanced technology, sometimes there is no trumping a gun, stick, or samurai sword.